Hi everyone, my name is Olivia Ferguson, and today I'm going to be debating four social stories. But to start, I wanted to just give you guys a brief description of what social stories are. And in a brief sense, they are a description of a specific situation or activity, and kind of the background of what would be socially acceptable or what the child should do while in those situations. They can be used for a variety of different things, and we'll go into that a little bit more as I describe them. But first, I want to show you an example of a social story. And so this is one that may be given to a child, hopefully you guys can read this, who is at school about what to do at recess. And so ultimately, this social story shows an individual with autism that it is okay for you to ask somebody if they want to play with you. And it's also okay for that person to say yes or to say no. And what would be socially acceptable for either of those answers. And so in this story, you can see that they use brief sentences as well as pictures to help the individual understand what is going on and how they fit into that story. Ultimately, when making a social story, it is most important that you pick a goal. That goal is going to differ upon every person as well as every situation and the people they may interact with within those situations. Next, you want to gather information. So, who is going to be part of this story? What might be happening? What activities may be involved? What materials might they be using? You also want to look at when this activity is happening, where it might be happening, and why, as each of these will be very individualized. Next, you want to consider their true age. So if you're working with somebody who their true age is a little bit younger, or their developmental age may be a little bit younger than their chronological age, it is nice to include pictures, and it's also nice to make, like that example that I showed you, with brief sentences that are easy for them to understand, and using verbiage that they can understand. You don't want to use very, very technical or high kind of language words if you're working with somebody who developmentally is only between 5 or 7, as they're not going to understand that, and that's not going to be beneficial for them. And then lastly, and probably one of the most important things, is you need to make sure you're writing from the child's perspective. Children with autism typically have a little bit more difficulty seeing things from other people's point of views in general. So if you write it in somebody else's point of view, they may not see how that pertains to them or how that actually relates to their situation to know how to respond. So always make sure that your social story is in their perspective. There are different types of social stories. They're descriptive, perspective, directive, and affirmative, and they're all kind of outlined throughout our book. But basically, descriptive is who, what, when, where, and why. Perspective is showing others' opinions, feelings, beliefs. Directive is suggesting appropriate social responses and actually correlating that or connecting that with more appropriate behaviors. And then affirmative states the culturally appropriate or expected kind of responses. So for general things, typically they're all integrated within every social story, but they're a good thing to kind of know, like in general, what they are. So what can social stories do? They can help to develop self-care skills. A lot of times they're used in the home to describe like how to brush your teeth, how to get dressed, maybe how to bathe yourself. Once you get into some of the older population, there's a lot of social stories for laundry or general housework, and how to appropriately do those, or what to do if something goes wrong while you're doing that. What to do if you maybe have a fire alarm at school, and that's something that's unusual for them, how to go about those things. They have social stories for improved social skills, so sharing, asking for help, saying thank you. They also have shown that they expand academic abilities, as well as aiding a person with autism to cope with changes in routine. So that kind of gets back at that fire drill, or if their teacher is absent, or maybe mom or dad isn't picking them up from school that day, and it helps walk them through what to do when something isn't the norm or what they're used to. Social stories also provide positive feedback for distressing events. So when they get told that they're going to have to move, a child with autism may have a lot of difficulty grasping that concept, and so a social story can really help them walk through what's going to happen and what they should expect in that more stressful time of their life. It also helps others to understand the perspectives of a person with autism. Because social stories need to be written in that child's perspective, it really makes you step into their shoes and experience how it might be or what it might feel like. It also is a behavioral or emotional strategy. So, again, it gives those children an example of, you know what, if the friend says no, that's okay, I can still play by myself, or I have other friends that I can ask. But if I ask them to play with me and they say yes, great, then we can go play, whatever activity we decide together. So, it kind of helps them do that. There are also some social stories more connecting with behavior where it may not even be specific to a general situation, such as being at recess, but they may be more specific to the actual emotion. So they may say, when I'm angry, these are the things I can do, or these are people I can talk to make me feel less angry. Or when I feel frustrated, I can, and have a list of things for them to do so that no matter what situation it is, when those emotions come up, they have a positive way to counteract those so that they can get back to being productive and hopefully being happy throughout the rest of the day. Where there is room for debate, though, when it comes to social stories, was seen all throughout the different articles that I reviewed. So, all the information I shared so far was kind of mingled within all of them. However, the room for debate was kind of specific to each article. So, in the Marshall et al. Article from 2016, they really said that they could not support the integration of social stories fully because they didn't know um, what of the many intertwining variables was actually affecting the results that they got. So they had very positive results, but their question was, are social stories positive because they actually help in that specific situation and the child is understanding how to behave and what to do if that occurs? Or are they having a positive interaction because the family and the caregivers are willing to take more time to feel that empathy and understand how they're actually feeling in that situation? And then they're in turn providing more instruction and actually helping them more than maybe the social story might be. And then again, in a different article, the one by Raynaud and Carter from 2011, they reported that social stories were very effective, but they found it only in limited situations. They found that the stories had to be very specific for a lot of children to understand them, and so that specificity is difficult in certain areas, and that maybe that was a lack of their study, and instruction within the actual study for the caregivers and family to give that. But ultimately, they weren't fully supported because of that reasoning. But again, the direct benefits that the articles did discuss were increased empathy, literal and concrete situations to allow the children to understand and feel like they have more control, because a lot of times with an ambiguous situation or activity, they may have increased anxiety as they don't know what to expect. Again, it reduced anxiety. It also helped with sequencing. It helped them to understand the order of things and how well things would happen, when they would occur, and how they could do that. It also can improve executive functioning as it helps to facilitate the individual thinking about how to plan and organize the different things that are going to be happening throughout that day, or plan and organize how they might feel about things and how they handle their emotions. I want to leave you guys with one last quote. I know that I've gone over my time already, but the intent of social stories use is not to focus solely on reducing negative behaviors, but on teaching social information surrounding a particular situation. And this is from Travis, 2006. And I think that's really important that we all understand that through social stories, we have the ability to help children reduce their anxiety and reduce their frustration or their anger that day. And ultimately, we have the power, I believe, through social stories to help that child have a great day and to be able to understand the things that are coming their way and to feel confident about any sort of changes that they may experience or any interactions that they may have with those around them. So, my reference list is on eLearning, and I thank you guys for listening to my extremely long video. I'm sorry it's so long, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks, guys.